Yeah, like when you're not practicing those things that are really authentic to you and you're just giving all of your time to sort of these other things that are pulling you off of your path, the sort of the person that's aching to be you, then you have to fill the void with a lot of, like, I don't know what the word is. It's not junk food. It's junk food for the soul. You know, it's like it's stuff that you don't need. You know, whether it's flipping channels until 3 a.m. or whatever it is. You know, so
there's a reason the very famous book was called Chicken Soup for the Soul, because you need the things that are really healthy and feeding you in that authentic place. That's what you really should be focused on.
Hey there, curvists! This is your host, Jemmy, and I want to welcome you to the 100th episode of the Curve the Cube podcast, episode number 100. And this episode is really, truly a milestone for me, not only because it's episode 100, but because it really brings a lot of my life full circle. This episode's guest is Tami Stronach, who is, oh my gosh, okay, my favorite movie of all time is a little film from the 80s called The Neverending Story. I love this movie so much. It really, really influenced my life. And, I mean, I know it word for word. It's just incredible. It's crazy. But anyways, the childlike empress, she herself is the one who is on this podcast. Tami Stronach is the childlike, I mean, it's not every day you get to talk to an empress. I mean, come on. So it was pretty awesome. But seriously, in all seriousness, Tami was not only incredibly patient through all of my technical difficulties that I've been enduring this week. Ugh, it's been just ridiculous. But she is just fantastic. Pun intended. And she's loving the pursuit of her own dream, and she's encouraging others to do that. So after Neverending Story, at some point in her life, she turned her attention to dance, and now has a dance studio, and she does has a production company called the Paper Canoe Company, and she's just doing a lot of really cool things. But what was really super fun about this podcast with her is that we get to really talk about my favorite topic, which is pursuing your dreams. And she really, really gets into it. And we share a lot of the same opinions and thoughts on the subject. So it was really enjoyable to talk to her. She's just absolutely delightful, and you guys are gonna love her. So please go check out her stuff. She is at TamiStronach.com, and that is spelled TamiStronach.com. Learn all about her dance company and her other production stuff, her writing, and she has an album coming out soon. That's at papercanoecompany.com. So go check out her stuff. Follow her, please. She is on Twitter as Neverending Tami, and on Instagram as Tami Stronach. I think there's an underscore underneath, but as soon as you start typing it, you'll find it. And with that, I'll say sit back and relax and enjoy this, the 100th episode of the Curve the Cube podcast with Neverending Tami, the childlike empress, Tami Stronach. Yay! Enjoy.
Curve the Cube will now initiate.
Hello, Tami?
Hi, we did it. Hi, Dee.
Yay!
I'm so sorry.
God.
I was listening to the Beatles music, and I'm like making tea, and I was like, oh, I know. Pick up eventually.
Let me tell you, I have never had the technological trauma that I've had this week. I mean, not only is this conference thing, but I have 2 iPhones. I upgraded both of them, and they both, well, let's just say it's a work in progress. Trying to get them to work again. It's just been a disaster.
Technology. I think I create a vortex around me, like anyone who needs to access technology. It just goes into, it might be me, is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, let me tell you, I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your kindness. I appreciate your understanding.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
Sure. No, today's great. Today I am super relaxed. My daughter's not in the house. I don't have to put her to bed. I was like, how am I going to do this?
Okay. Oh gosh, I was freaking out. So thank you so much. I'm so excited to talk to you. I mean, in case you couldn't tell by my utter freak out by being able to, posting pictures and stuff of going to see the Neverending Story in theaters the other couple weeks ago. It was like a dream come true because it's literally my favorite movie of all time. And I've never seen it on a big screen. Yeah, I've never seen it on a big screen, so it was great. It was a great experience.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk to you, too, because I feel like your whole mission of, following, encouraging, and inspiring people to do what they dream is sort of really in line with the kinds of things I'm interested in. So I feel like I'm excited to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. It's so funny you say that because, as much as I love this movie and know it word for word, it's a different experience when you see it. I'm now in my 30s, and so when I hear a line, always, about do what you dream, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it struck such a new and deeper chord with me this time around when I saw the movie again. So yeah, it's incredible. So I have to tell you something, and so this is how excited I am to talk to you. This episode is episode 100. And I was moving things around like crazy because I really wanted this episode to be episode 100.
Nice.
I'm so happy to talk to you. Yay. So, anyways, thank you so much. I mean, it's not every day that I get to talk to a childlike empress, so thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, so what was it like for you to see the movie have those special screenings? And I mean, it wasn't quite the 30th anniversary. It was maybe like the 32nd, I guess. But what was that experience like, knowing that it was out there again?
Well, it was interesting. I mean, it was sort of like when, went dead for a long time. It was the thing I did when I was a kid, and I really wasn't focused on it at all. I was focused on, other things. And then somehow around the 30th anniversary, it was funny, things started to kind of pop up, and I started to get requests to, talk about it, and it started to show up in sort of funny ads on, recently on Spotify. You're like, oh wow, there's Falcor. What's he doing up there? And suddenly there sort of seems to be this resurgence of interest in the film. And I mean, I think the only way that it makes sense to me is that, like me, so many of the people who were kind of into that film as kids are probably parents now, and their kids are at an age where they're sharing. I mean, I keep trying to share E.T. with my daughter. She's totally very, very afraid. She thinks it's going to be scary, and two times a week we're like, how about tonight?
How old is she?
She's 5. So
I have a 4.5-year-old, so I get it. Tell your 5-year-old that my 4.5-year-old loves that movie, and
really,
and she has nothing to worry about. Oh yeah,
yeah. So I mean, it's funny what will scare her and what won't. Sort of hard to always tell. But so I think, like me, parents are wanting to share the things that they loved and are nostalgic for with their children, and so I think that's what's driving it. It must be, right?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And it is one of those movies. I mean, when I mention it to people, anybody that I've mentioned it to, everybody is nothing but high regard. It's very nostalgic. It's a cult classic. It's one of those that just kind of exists in the ether of our culture, right? It's such a good movie. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, when I was little, when I told my brother that I was talking to you, he was so excited for me. He actually started, I could hear it. He might hate that I'm admitting this, but I heard it over the phone that he was tearing up because he used to reenact that whole final scene with when the ivory tower is starting to crumble, and a trail comes in, and he's reenacted that, playing both parts magnificently, by the way. He's reenacted that for me over and over again when I was little. So, yeah, it was a big deal. It's a big deal for me. So I'm so excited.
Very funny. I have a dance company in New York, and one of the dancers, Zan Burley, in my company, who's just a phenomenal dancer. She's really amazing. So it was very funny because I used to teach, and she used to come take my classes, and then I asked her to join the company, and then, one day in rehearsal, we have this, really deep, working relationship, and I'm, really hold her in, the highest regard, and, she's like, I just have to tell you this, Tami, but, I dressed up like you on a regular basis, and I had the tiara, and I just have to get it off my chest. It was so funny. Because, I'm in my 40s, she's in her 30s, we're, in the studio working on this modern dance piece, and it was very cute and very sweet.
That's hilarious. What is that fan? Obviously this is someone that you know very well, but what is that fan experience like? I know you just came back from a Comic-Con, right?
I did. Well, it's really interesting. I think that for me, as a child, I found it really overwhelming, and one of the reasons that I didn't pursue acting after the Neverending Story, it was filmed in Germany at the Bavarian Studios. It was the first partnership that was done between a German studio, Wolfgang Petersen was the director, and Warner Brothers, but it was kind of like the first film in Germany made to sort of try to be like a big blockbuster film. But when we got involved, we thought it was going to be a small avant-garde European release film. We had, we were flying to Munich to do something in Munich. We had no idea that anyone would even see it, So, my parents are archaeologists, they're academics, they're really knowledgeable about, anything that happened BC, anything that happened thousands of years ago, and not particularly knowledgeable at navigating Hollywood, which is a very different kind of world. So I think initially I was really overwhelmed with kind of meeting fans, and I didn't necessarily enjoy it that much. I just felt sort of overwhelmed with it, and so I kind of decided, I'm not, for many reasons. Also after a lot of consultation about what it's like to be a child in Hollywood, and looking around at my support team with their noses in, commended archaeology books, thinking, not sure that'll be the best steward for me in this. We sort of decided, well, we're really not equipped to really gracefully ride these waves and come out floating on top at the end of the day. So I went into, dance and still the arts, but all kinds of other forms of expression. But I have to say that now in my mid-40s as a mom, it's totally shifted, and it's really lovely. I feel like I hid from it for so long that I didn't even realize what the benefits were, and I've decided to just embrace it and meet people, and it's so nice to kind of feel like you have this connection with people you didn't even realize you had, and that it actually expands your world. It makes you feel connected to more people, and certainly, at this age, I feel very equipped to kind of navigate it, and it's just lovely. I go to Comic-Cons and I meet people, and they tell me stories about it, and I meet their kids, and their kids are like, who is that lady? and it's just like a very human experience. And so for me, it's been a really lovely transformation of really enjoying it and embracing it and feeling connected to people.
That's great. What do you think? Because you're so naturally talented. Do you think you would ever, now that you have this different perspective, would ever jump into it again?
Well, definitely. I think part of what happened, having my daughter really just changed everything for me. I know people say that. It sounds like such a cliche. It's
but
terrible.
it's so true.
It's just
so true.
It changes
some
a lot for you.
And so true.
I don't know. I was sort of really interested in coming to New York and making these dark avant-garde pieces. And, suddenly you have a kid and you just want to make, like, fun work that will make her laugh. And like, all of a sudden, like, what I want to make and what I want to be a part of has really shifted. And I still, feel really passionate about making dances, but even the sort of way I'm approaching that has slightly shifted. And so Paper Canoe Company is something I formed with my husband a couple, maybe 2 years ago, and it's really brought me back to acting. We made a couple of shows. One show was in residence at the New Victory Theater, which is a Broadway playhouse in New York. We had a residency, and we developed a piece called Light about a young girl who lives in a world where the sun was stolen. Ooh. And she has to bring it back. Yeah, it was exciting. And then we made a really cute sock puppet show. Initially started in our living room with funny voices for our daughter, and then some neighbors came over and saw it, and then they were like, oh, you should do this for more people. And then this local theater was like, why don't you do it here? And it ran for months. It was like sort of sold out for months last spring in Williamsburg.
Wow.
And so it's funny. I feel theater creeping back into my life and acting, and it's really lovely, actually. So I'm open to where it takes me. And actually, we started making some music. We have an album that we're releasing in a couple of months, and we've been doing a lot of singing as a family. So it's funny. I feel like this whole process of having a kid brought me back to doing the things that I really loved to do as a kid. And
oh my gosh! You don't have to tell me it's endless Lego nights at my house.
Yeah, so it's really it reopens you to these things that you loved as a kid, including acting.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And has your daughter seen the film?
No, Gmork is gonna just send her into 3 weeks of nightmares. I think 7. I think 7 is the age. I want her to like the film. You know what I mean? Like, I want her to be like, thanks for showing me that, Mom. Not like,
aw, not like scared of it. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Traumatize her. But she knows the story. And
Oh, go ahead. No.
She knows the story. Like, she definitely knows the story, and she knows all about the characters, and she has seen pictures, and we have little action figures at our house from that they gave me from when I made the film, and she plays with them.
Oh my God, this is funny.
It'll happen when she's ready.
Is there a little childlike empress action figure out there?
There is.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing! You have an action figure. That's so cool.
I don't think they made very many of them.
Hey, it just takes one to be able to claim it. It just takes one. That's awesome.
That's pretty funny.
I remember.
So wait, do you have a daughter too? You said you have Legos at home, or?
Well, it's a son. I have a son. But yeah, we play. We play Legos, and we get into all those fun things. That you're absolutely right that you love from when you were a kid. And what's amazing about parenthood that I'm discovering every single day, over and over and over again, is the magic that suddenly exists again when you can see the world through their eyes. Yeah, I'll give you a most recent example. We were watching, Jordan and I were watching, that's my son, Jordan. We were watching the third Harry Potter movie. Yeah. And it suddenly dawned on him. He points at the screen and he says, Mommy, why do those two look the same? And he's talking about two of the Weasley brothers that are identical twins. And I realized my son that was a new concept for him. And so I explained identical twins and fraternal twins and Googled a bunch of pictures and brought them up, and his mind was absolutely blown. Just blown. Yeah. And you forget about that the innocence, that magic, and so and for me, when I found out, I think it was one of those things that Facebook just knows too much about you, and I was scrolling, and all of a sudden it was a promoted post that the movie was going to be, that Neverending Story was going to be doing some special screenings, and I was like, I immediately clicked in. I'm like, you got me. I got to take my son to see this. I got to take myself to see this. Like, this is just going to bring back all of that, because when I was little, I remember when Blockbuster first kind of came on the scene, and even pre-Blockbuster, it was just a local video store. And every Friday, my family would go, and my parents would pick a movie, my brother would pick a movie, and I would pick a movie. And I remember walking down the aisles one time and seeing this VHS cover, right, that had a kid riding this amazing white dragon. I was like, that's it. That's what I want. And I'm not kidding you, Tami. I went back every single Friday and rented the movie for about 2 years. That's how I saw it. And that's, so, it was just magical, and it was inspiring.
Nice.
And and when I went back and watched it, it made a lot more sense as to how much it helped shape who I am, and this whole pursuit of wanting to encourage others to pursue their dreams, not forget what makes them passionate and what makes them happy and what they really want and love to do in life. And always do what you dream is just one of those things that it burns into your memory and it's become part of my fabric. And so that is what this movie has meant for me. And so the opportunity to take my son to it and introduce him to it, and by the way, I took him twice.
Did he like it?
Oh, he loved it.
He did. Oh, good.
He absolutely loved it. I mean, I think the rock fighter kind of freaked him out just because of his size a little bit. He's like, whoa, what is that thing? But and Gamork, once we got to that part, he was a little bit, but he ended up being okay. But yeah,
How old is he?
It was so wonderful. He's 4.5. 4.5.
4.5. Oh,
so,
that's such a good age. This age, they're really similar in age.
I know. If we're ever in town together, we'll have to get them together.
Totally, they'll play date. Well, it's interesting because I think that in many ways, without even realizing it, I think that the film also shaped me a lot. But I also think that must have been in you before, and that you were attracted to the film because that was such a big part of who you are. Do you know what I mean? Cause I think that, like, for me, even as I remember being like I'm putting together a talk for the Rhode Island Comic-Con, partly because I really I like to sign autographs and meet people, but I also really prefer to have exchanges where we can together, like, really talk about what pop culture can do to bring people together, and how it can be an expression of people, the things that people want, and the positive ways that we can build community through these things. So to kind of expand the way in which I interact with people. So I'm putting together a brief talk and a Q&A for the Rhode Island one, which will be a little different, and it's a Do What You Dream talk. So I hope I'm not stealing your tagline.
No.
We're on the same team. We're on the same team.
Find your passion, do your thing. We're okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good thing for many people to be sort of talking about. But in putting that talk together, I really realized that I was born in Iran. My parents were archaeologists, so I went to strict British school when I was little, and I look at my daughter now, and she's 4 or 5. I was the same age as her. It was an incredibly rigid, sort of strict environment. They had, and I was a very imaginative sort of kid, and I felt like a fish out of water. I really hated school, and I didn't feel like I fit in. And I went home one day, and I told my mom, I've solved it. I know what to do at school now. And she was like, Tammy's going to tell me that she made some new friend and they're besties and everything's cool because she can hang out with her. Right. Tammy's going to say this. And I'm like, I have a TV in my head, Mom. and I can make the most amazing shows. And I just can let them run and run. And so I spend all day now just watching my shows, and I'm going to be fine at school.
That is awesome.
And so it's pretty funny and kind of embarrassing, and, but also,
I can so relate to that.
And I think many people can, and I think that's sort of why the film had the staying power, is that really so much of what sustains us through hardship and when things aren't going well is really the power of our own imagination to kind of uplift us. And and I feel like those are the, when that's something you've experienced and it's been real for you, you connect to a story that confirms that really is powerful and that really is worth listening to. Yeah.
When I went back and watched it again, so there's that opening scene, the opening part with Bastian, with his dad, and his dad is talking to him about how he's been late for school and he needs to keep his head out of the clouds and both feet on the ground and all this stuff, and then how the film then bookends that, and at the end, here you are screaming at him saying, just call my name. Like, no, I have to keep both feet on the ground. And to me, that scene is so symbolic of everything that I've been through in the last 2 years, where, I've built a career in corporate America for a great many more years than I care to admit, as a data analyst, and eventually I just stopped really liking my job. And it was because, for me, walking into a building every day where you're essentially corralled into a cubicle and you have a task to do and you punch your card and that's it. And at the end of the day, you've done a lot of work for someone else's dream, but not for your own. And it dawned on me that shouldn't be how we go through this one chance in life that we have on this earth. And when I saw that scene again where he's struggling and he's like, but I have to keep those feet on the ground, and it's like this precipice moment where he either sinks or swims. He either decides to stay in the mundane, the humdrum, the expectation of every day that you go to work or you go to school and you do exactly what you're told, versus the pursuit of a dream and of individuality. And it really has always spoken to me my entire life, and especially since the revelation that I had a couple of years ago, and then deciding to put this message into a podcast. It's been it was really eye opening when I saw the film again. It was like, wow, this is my film. As much as it is the world's film, it was my film.
Well, and I think that we all have that moment, and I mean, it's so courageous of you to have gotten up and thrown the window open, like you did it, and what is it that
it's still a work in progress, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think that that question of what is it that's stopping us from getting up and throwing the window open is really worth thinking about. And I also think that there's a lot of, it's very simple to say do what you dream, but that's actually a really complicated sentence, like if you take it apart. Yeah. Like, first of all, what you dreamed for yourself at 4 is different than what you dreamed for yourself at 20, which is different than what you dreamed for yourself at 40, right? So what's the dream? And is it an authentic dream to, like, your soul, or is it the dream your parents had for you?
Exactly.
Or is it the dream that, like, embodies the values of the larger culture around you? Like, how do you really drown out the noise and zero in on, the authentic expression of yourself, and kind of really listen to that? And it might look very different. The path might look really different than what other people expect for you or think you should dream about, And so I think, just identifying the dream is a lot of work, and then the do part is the really hard part, right? Like the do what you dream part.
Oh, it's two little letters that are suddenly so big.
Yeah, D-O.
And it needs
Okay,
all the
that means
courage,
a lot,
yes.
so.
All the courage that it takes and all of the, because, and I've tried to be very careful with my message. Yes, I've tried to be very careful with my message because, I don't want to encourage people to, burn the house down and just say, screw these bills and screw the roof over my head. I'm going to quit my job today and go, play golf. It doesn't work that way. But, you have to be careful about it, but I still think you need to, D-O, just do it. Just one foot in front of the other and just start doing it. Well, that's the thing. It's the importance of the sticking
power, right? It's the rigor.
Mm-hmm.
It's the discipline to stick to the thing that you truly feel connected to. And I think that, that's the flip side of the coin is, we have all these binaries. You have to be practical or you're a dreamer. And, of course, binaries don't take us anywhere. They just confuse us because, in fact, you have to be disciplined while you dream. And then where do dreams come from? Dreams are fragments of processing information from reality, right? And so, in fact, our dreams grow out of the real, and then as soon as we do something about them, they become real. So the binary between what's real and what's imagined dissolves. And so, I feel like in this pursuit of being an artist, being a teacher, being a mom, trying to find ways to kind of not only guide myself to stay connected to what's, truly important to me, but to guide my daughter, to guide my students, it's how you define all these things is really important in making them relevant.
Absolutely. I mean, so a huge part of my goal and what I'm doing is to, and I think this is pretty much every parent's goal, is to leave a legacy, and what that means for everybody is different. But in part, what it means for me is I want my son to have seen an example of that hard work and in the pursuit of happiness, and not have him confuse it with that instant fame that so many people end up trying to go for instead today, and focusing on the wrong thing. The fame shouldn't be the dream, in my opinion. The fame should be a cool byproduct or bonus if that's what you want of the thing. But the dream the satisfaction should really just come from getting up every day and doing what you love and doing it well and really giving it the honor that your daily sacrifice for it deserves, but it's not reducing the value of it by just thinking of it as the end goal is I want to be famous. And so with my son, he's a lot like me, and I'm noticing things that he does that are a lot like me when I was little. He reenacts entire movies, start to finish. Mm-hmm. He loves acting and all of that type of stuff. And so I'm having to be careful with myself and make sure that I don't impart my dreams on him, but rather just keep pouring water on the roots of his own. And so it can be a little tricky thing when you're a parent and you just want to encourage your kids to do what they love, and it's hard sometimes to make sure that you make sure that it's what they love.
That they have space to define their own trajectory.
Exactly.
I mean, totally relate to that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I feel like it's interesting because you have so much influence your children so much, mm-hmm. and it's kind of terrifying how absorbent they are, and so how to kind of notice the ways in which they're different or which my daughter is different than me, and to kind of celebrate that is a daily kind of practice.
Absolutely. Well, thinking about that, I guess, because you mentioned that you're starting to sing together, which I think is adorable, and I know you have your dance studio. Is she starting to show any interest in any of the creative arts?
Yeah, I mean, she really wants to be a singer. She started playing the ukulele. She gives us regular concerts at home. Oh, they're really sweet, and she was livid because the album we made is based on the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. It's like a song cycle of that story, and it's a kind of bluegrass tradition and then goes through various styles of rock and roll once Jack gets up into the sort of Vegas-style clouds of the giant. He sort of suddenly hit like we go from the shack, the bluegrass shack, up into the kind of the mansion in the sky, so it gets kind of like more rock and roll. But so there's, in our version, that story is really intense because it's kind of an odd story in the sense that, like, you look at the moral of it and you're like, so Jack goes up the Beanstalk and he steals a bunch of stuff, and then he kills the giant. We all say, hooray. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to process
like wait a minute.
And I'm like, okay, it must have, like, come out of feudal times, when the Lord had all these serfs, and it was this incredibly unfair system, and de facto he was taking all of the serf stuff anyway, so it must have been this sort of desire for more equality from this time, but how do we modernize this? So we decided that we would have Jack go up the Beanstalk, and that the giant has a daughter who sort of lives in this gilded cage amidst all this wealth and all this stuff, and that the giant's bad, he goes and he steals the villagers' stuff so that we could feel better about the whole thing. But that really what Jack steals is the giant's most prized possession, which is his daughter's heart. And so he steals the giant, kind of like Romeo and Juliet. He steals the giant's daughter, and they run away and start a band together. So that's kind of our Jack and the Beanstalk meets Romeo and Juliet kind of song cycle. But so Maya, my daughter, she's been like, Mom, it just doesn't make sense that you sing the daughter, because you should sing the mom part. I am the daughter. She is really sort of lobbying for several roles in a variety of productions that we have going on right now, and we'll definitely slip her in, when she can remember her lines.
Right. Oh, that's hysterical. That's hysterical. Well, how did you get your dance company off the ground? What did that take, and what has that whole experience been like for you?
Oh, well, New York was so different 20 years ago. I teach at the university now. I'm a dance professor at Marymount Manhattan College, in addition to running my company and making Paper Canoe. But I worry about my students in that I feel like it's a lot harder now in a way than it was then. New York was a very different town, and I sort of came here and I got into a dance company called Macaran Dancers, so I had my steady gig with a company, and then I made my own dances on the side, and I lived in Bushwick before Williamsburg was Williamsburg and Bushwick was Bushwick. My rent was $280 a month. I lived with a wonderful Italian landlady whose husband had recently passed away, and she had this massive German shepherd that she couldn't walk because he was very rambunctious. So I walked her dog in exchange for this really ridiculous rent, and I danced all day, and I made dances all day, and I'm so nostalgic. I mean, it was really a time when you could be that kind of an artist in the city, and so you didn't need a lot, and dancers really wear sweatpants all day. You're dancing 8 hours a day. I taught ballet on the side, and it was really magical. I mean, I feel so blessed. I was in the studio, for a decade, every day, 8 hours a day, just dancing. And I don't really think you can do that with the rents in New York anymore. I mean, I see my students entering this economy and trying to live their dreams like we've been talking about. And, of course, there are these external obstacles that participate in how that can manifest or not manifest. And so I feel like given all of those external limitations, though, it's even more important to recognize the internal ones, because those are the ones that you can actually do something about. And so those are the ones that are worth dismantling, because we all put ourselves in these boxes, and we have a hard time imagining that we can get out of them. And so
Absolutely.
I feel super, super passionate about trying to help the next generation of artists and young girls, because like 80% of my students are girls, and I do have to say that as a teacher, I do witness girls putting themselves in more boxes than my male students, who somehow, maybe partly because they're already making a really courageous decision to be part of a field like dance, where men aren't necessarily, it's not a very masculine field. So they're people who've already sort of broken with what people expect of them, or what society says they should do, or they've sort of already taken that leap to just define their own trajectory, and it does sort of create a certain freedom. So I feel really passionate about unlocking that for the students, that male or female, that are more stuck in their boxes, because there's so much wasted talent and ingenuity in that, and the world is hard enough. So how do you unblock all the internal blocks?
Absolutely. I could not agree more. So a lot of it is a mental game, for sure, because we get in our own ways a lot of the time. That's the difficulty. And a lot of my conversations with people, what I've discovered is, I think what people have in common who do pursue their dreams and do go after a goal that seems lofty or unattainable, or for other people what those other people are, who knows, but they must be more talented than I am, et cetera, is that they just have the courage and the diligence to just start at it, put one foot in front of the other and just do it, and not allow themselves to get in their own way, and not allow those thoughts to keep themselves from breaking out of that box. And that's I find consistent across the board with all of my guests, is that mindset. And I do very much appreciate that you're trying to impart that onto others, because it can be extremely frustrating. I know I've done it to myself. I continue to do it to myself, as much as I try to rage against it and catch myself when I do it. But it's true. Not to say another cliche, but you're your own worst critic, right? And you,
totally.
and so, and it's true when you say that your male dancers have already had to take a leap like that outside of the box, and so, and it's interesting you talk about women in particular and girls, because it's been something that's been on my mind lately as to the particular challenges. I don't know if it's the election that's causing me to think about this, with the potential for our first woman president, or what. But I'm thinking about how much more women have to prove. And on the one hand, and then on the other hand, how much more we criticize ourselves and others criticize us. And so I've been thinking about that a little bit lately, and thinking about whether or not I want to start a conversation about that. And I think I love that you are definitely having those conversations, because as a podcaster, I think it's been a while since I've researched the numbers, but I think female podcasters only account for like 20% of the voices. And it's a little, and so it's our challenges are unique, when it comes to anything, any field, whether it's the creative arts, through construction, through the military, and running for president. The challenges are unique when it comes to being a woman.
They are, and I think that it's a really interesting moment, because we're starting to have some real conversations with a lot of stuff coming out about harassment in the workplace, in media outlets, and watching the election unfold, and I think that it's exciting. It feels to me in some ways like, the pot gets really hot and boiling when some real stuff starts coming out, and there's a lot of opportunity to kind of ask ourselves, how we want to create more opportunities for girls and women to really participate fully, because it's just so in my opinion, there's just so much wasted, like I said, talent when those boxes stay tight. And, as a choreographer and as a dancer and someone who takes my cues from the body, I feel like the body has so much intelligence and so much to teach us. And I went into dance because I really am so passionate about moving and what physicality can tell us about ourselves. And I think, I'm always sort of surprised the more I spend time thinking about movement in the body and how many clues it has as to what's going on. And there's just all these amazing studies where if you take, there's Amy Cuddy, she did that TED Talk. There's a really amazing one about how if you take a power pose for 2 minutes, all the chemicals in your body change and your testosterone goes up and then the stress hormone goes down and you're much more able to take risks. So
interesting.
It's really fascinating. So if you stand with your arms out in a big X for 2 minutes, you change the chemistry in your body, and you change it in such a way that you literally feel more powerful and have more confidence because of the chemicals in your body. And we tell women and girls to cross their legs. We tell women and girls to, and anytime you cross anything, you're making yourself smaller and more submissive, right? So
you sure are.
What does it mean that you've been socialized from such a small age to kind of fold in on yourself rather than expand and open? And so
you're absolutely
I don't know,
right.
like I also feel as dancers, many of the women that the work that I'm really interested in has always been dance theater, because obviously I come from a theater background, so I've used a lot of text in my work. But many of the students that I come across are female students who have expressed themselves physically because they're not that comfortable using their voice and articulating themselves in words. And so kind of, again, this binary thing, like your voice is muscles, it's vocal cords, it's connected to your body, it's sound produced by your body. There really isn't a difference. And so how do you reclaim your voice as a part of your expression? So and then having a 5-year-old girl and watching her try to fit into a mold that somebody else is defining, and me just trying to keep her possibilities open. I feel like I'm just doing gymnastics around her, just like keeping those walls open. Like, no, you can be a rock star and a vet. You can, you can be smart and pretty. You don't have to choose. All of these
God bless
funny
you
things.
For that. It's the mixed messages that we get because we are told that we have to be one thing and not the other, and it's particularly for women, but for it is across the board. I mean, but it's very
for men too, of course.
Yeah, and when as you were speaking about your daughter, what I was thinking about my son, the conversations, because this has happened more than once, that came up was when he will say something like, "Well, pink is for girls," and I'm like, no, and it's offensive to me to hear him say that in terms of the implications for girls as it is for implications for boys, because I feel like he by that sentence he's not only boxing in girls, but he's boxing in himself as to whether or not he can pursue whatever he wants, because he's worried that if he does something, he will be judged because it's not boy enough, And
absolutely.
So
there's something fascinating about.
Thing.
There's some kind of study where boys' vocal range. I'm sorry, this is not very scientific. I don't have the link or the resource or anything. I'm sorry.
But you're not sitting next to the one who
I'm just going to be very unscientific about this. There's something I read, and it resonated with me. You can look it up and see if it's true or not. Your critical thinking. Don't take me for my word. But about how boys'
disclaimer.
boys' voice range shuts down, towards the 7-8-year-old mark. Like when they're young, they're like, hey, and they're down, and they have all this like emotion in their voice. And then somehow, I don't remember the exact age, but like part of the pressure that boys experience is this like enormous pressure to kind of shut down and like not be overly emotional, right? And their voices kind of flatline. They just kind of go into this much less vocally dynamic range than girls. And so, I mean, I feel like this whole question of gender, it's so funny. It's not about girls. It's like if you make more space and you give people permission to be their authentic selves, and you allow that to expand for anyone, for any individual in our society, it expands it for everybody. Like it's
absolutely.
It's like, you know, the paths we open in one area open paths for everyone, including, you know, including people who don't necessarily think that they need more paths open for them. Like, you know, you don't even know sometimes what you're missing out on if you've sort of been boxed in, right? Because you're in the fishbowl.
Absolutely. And, you know, and it seems to me that your passion isn't just dance and performance and the art. It seems like it's a lot more philanthropic than that, because you've talked about how you really have kept a keen eye on the difficulties that your dancers are going through and helping to guide them and all of that. And it seems like you're hyper aware of all of that stuff. I couldn't help but wonder, do you think that flows from the same place as the creativity does? Like, is it just the sensitivity of your nerves, I guess? You seem like you're very compassionate, and then you also seem like you can be very expressive. Does that come from the same place?
I mean, I think that I've always been, maybe if there is some kind of spectrum of like being emotional, like, and there's a scale of 1 to 10, and you asked my family where I sit on it, it'd be like 11.
Oh my God, mine too.
And you know, I probably, definitely drove my sister absolutely bonkers, because you know, every animal we saw on the road that was roadkill, I insisted we stop and bury it and say a prayer. Like, oh gosh, we have a 4-hour ride to Yosemite. Like, we can't keep doing funerals on the way. And you know, bless my family. Can you imagine a family like being this indulgent of a human being? Like, really, I was very lucky. So
I love it.
I think for me, the imagination and the arts and creativity were this incredible haven where all of those feelings, they weren't too big, they weren't too messy. They, in fact, made it possible for me to create and to include people and build community and make spaces where other people could express themselves. And so this thing that maybe was a negative, or the way I experienced it was a negative as a young child, turned into a positive. And again, it just comes back to this notion of these binaries, like this is bad and this is good. And it's like, well, it all depends on how it gets transformed and utilized. And that in some ways I feel like going back to this do what you dream theme that we've been talking about. I was thinking about it because of the kind of preparation for the talk, and it occurred to me that dreams are really powerful, and that they're the one place in our lives where binaries don't exist. You know,
my gosh,
dream,
that is so true.
Right?
I never thought about that before. That's absolutely true.
It's like the one space where, like, it's not this or that. It's this and that.
Right.
And there's room for, like, there's room for, like, two contradictory things to be happening simultaneously, and you're not in the dream going, well, that doesn't make sense, you know?
Right. 1 minute you're sitting in the airplane eating off your food tray, and the next thing your arms are the wings of the plane itself. Like,
exactly, and you're like, of course, that makes total sense to me, right? And so there's something like, I feel like there's something really powerful wonderful that we can learn from dreams, because these binaries are where so much, in my opinion, limited thought comes from. It's like it's where those boxes come from. And and dreams offer us this moment where those binaries dissolve, and in fact a kind of much deeper and more potent kind of experience of reality occurs. And then maybe you don't have to choose pink or blue.
Right?
Maybe you get to like both of them. Like,
you know what I'm thinking?
I don't know. That's.
You know what I'm imagining? How old were you when you said you went off to that the school in Britain that was very strict? How old did you say you were?
Oh goodness me! I was such a bad fit for that school. It was called the British Institute of Tehran. I was 4.
So what I'm thinking of, I'm imagining this 4-year-old Tami running home and saying, "Mom, I figured out how to make it through school, and it's essentially the television in my brain and I'm in my mind, and I'm basically you're making a claim for daydreaming." As you're talking, I'm picturing your mom. It's you and your mom sitting in a therapist's office, and the therapist saying exactly what you just said, is saying, "Okay, listen, Mom, she's trying to think non-binary. She doesn't want to be. She's in this school that is really restrictive, and she's trying to be imaginative. She's trying not to be binary."
Well, and it's really interesting. I mean, I'm also a huge proponent of daydreaming. Like, I believe you need to buckle down and focus. I'm not saying that you don't need to focus and buckle down and concentrate. And of course, we need to do that. But some of our best ideas come to us when we daydream. And so
Absolutely.
It's funny, I think that the importance of reasserting our own values is, a daily practice. And I think we live in a world that really values material things, that is really good at validating what's concrete and what's real, and not very good at remembering the potency of invisible things, of things that are more ephemeral. And in fact, those two worlds, our dreams intermingle with our daytime life, right? So, in fact, the fantasy and the reality, that in itself really is much less of a binary. When we write a fantasy story, it's on the page, it's real, and then it inspires a kid to have more courage. Like all the stories we tell, they spill into real life and they affect you, and then you're telling me about watching the film and it encouraging you to kind of connect with this impulse that already existed in you. And so, I don't know, I just think it's really important to kind of continue to kind of remind myself. I mean, I think most of the time we teach the thing we need to learn, and that's why we're teaching it, right?
So true.
Because we're students, obviously.
Oh my God, you're so true.
And so, I think that for me as a human being, it's important for me to kind of remind myself of how powerful the imagination is and how powerful, it is to kind of validate the creative impulse and potential in people. And in a world that I think often forgets that that's actually what brought everything around us into being,
That's true. Do you think because you talk about, you have you can have a really creative story and you write it down and now it's part of something more real and more tangible. Is that how your expression through dance comes about? Does it kind of start as a almost like a daydream, and you're thinking about a scene in your head, and then that's how the choreography comes about? Are those related at all?
Oh, that's interesting. I feel like the way I go about making theater is a little bit different than the way I go about making dance. The theater and the music, we really started from a very kind of clear narrative place, and then how do you find the best expression for that story? But the dancing, I have to say, I think comes from a much more subconscious place. Like I'll go into the studio and my body will want to move a certain way, and then I'll look at the material and I'll be like, what is this? And I just keep making and making and making, and then it's so kind of like the dance tells me what it's about. And obviously it's not the dance. It's almost like I feel like something, I need to work something out, and I go into the studio and I make it, and then by making it, I learn kind of where I'm at in my life and what's important to me. The last piece I made two pieces this year. One's called Around the Bend, and it turned out that the dance was about being in the middle of my life. I mean, I didn't set about making it, but like that's what it turned out to be about. And and that's kind of where I'm at. And I needed to examine this concept of what it means to be in the middle of things, because I feel like society tends to, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe it's just me, but somehow we kind of don't really celebrate the middle so much. We love beginnings and we love endings, but I'm in the middle of things. There's like the middle child, the neglected child. There's something about being in the middle that a midlife crisis. There's this baggage around being in the middle. It's not like you don't tell someone I'm in the middle of something. They're like, wow, that's so awesome. Right. I was like, I think this whole concept of being in the middle, being the mid-career, middle of my life, like it's important to look at that and then affirm like the potentiality of it, that there's still so much potential, that there's still so much room for growth, and that there's still risks to take. And so the piece was really about that. It ended up being set at a kind of party that the audience was invited to, and we give everybody wine in the middle of the show, and I give a toast to being in the middle of things. It sort of like freaks everybody out. I'm like, imagine that this moment right now is the exact midpoint of your life. Cheers. Wow. Like, whoa. Wow. And so it's humorous, and it's supposed to, be a little bit in jest and stuff, but also to really take stock of the fact that, every moment counts, and not to be complacent about that.
Absolutely, and I 100% agree, because we can get so caught up, and it's kind of along the same lines of pursuing your dream. You can get so caught up in the day-to-day that you forget to pause and take notice of where you're at, and is it where you're supposed to be. And that can be, that can be true with the expanse of your life, too. And I try to kind of pause and think, and sometimes, I'm not too happy with where I am, and sometimes I'm very happy, and it's just all about, accepting your past, being excited about your future, but honoring where you are right now, because that is the only thing you truly, truly have, anyway. So, and I think when we think about how, okay, this life, this could be the middle, or this could be the end. We don't really know.
Absolutely.
And I think the way you really truly embrace the middle is by saying, I'm going to live every day like it is the last, because it could be. But I don't want to breeze over this moment that I'm in right now, because this could be all that there ends up being, and it should be just as important as anything that's happened or that could happen. Just celebrate where you are right now, and then, but always dream about the future too. It's always good.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that it's so easy to kind of to get caught up in like emails and bills and like all the kind of mundane things, just to bring it back to the Neverending Story. Like, I think that's a real problem that we all have. It's hard to keep all of those things in check and keep that really kind of big, passionate part of our soul alive. But I think that's the balancing act. And I think that, my feeling though is that what's the cost of not doing it? Right? Like anytime it feels too tiring to like pursue doing what we dream, living an authentic life, being creative, all the things that I feel are passionate for me, for you, your podcast, and connecting with people and getting these stories out there. I feel like, well, what's the cost if we don't do it? Or, if other people don't do the thing that's really important and authentic. And the cost is too high. It's too high.
Right. It really is. In fact, it's interesting you say that, because just today I was thinking I have so many other things that I have to worry about on a day-to-day basis that I need to start sloughing some of that off and clearing out some of those extras out of my life so I can focus more on what makes me happy. And too often people go the other way. Like, they'll have their 9 to 5, and then they have their band on the side or what have you, and all these other life obligations. And because things are so crazy, they'll say, well, I can't practice with the band today, or I can't get in the studio this week. But instead, what you really should be doing is taking stock of all the other things that are causing you to make endless decisions, or go endless places, or run around like crazy, and think how much of that is essential. Because the argument is that going into the studio and doing your thing, or you're going and dancing, or spending time and writing poetry, or whatever it is, that should be more essential. Should be more essential than making sure that your cell phone or your dry cleaning got dropped off or something like that. Like,
and I think,
really, for me, what's important.
When I do the things that are creative and sort of soul fulfilling, I feel, I feel more whole, and I feel like I need less junk food, or junk food for the soul.
Right.
I don't want to buy as much stuff. I'm not longingly looking at vacations. I'm, like that.
Right.
In a way,
it's true,
because
you're more happy and centered.
Yeah, like when you're not practicing those things that are really authentic to you, and you're just giving all of your time to sort of these other things that are pulling you off of your path, that the sort of the person that's aching to be you, then you have to fill the void with a lot of, like, I don't know what the word is. It's not junk food. It's junk food for the soul. It's like it's stuff that you don't need. Whether it's flipping channels until 3 a.m. or whatever it is. So,
there's a reason the very famous book was called Chicken Soup for the Soul, because you need the things that are really healthy and feeding you in that authentic place. That's what you really should be focused on and consuming.
And I have to say, this is going back to just to Paper Canoe, the entertainment company that I started with my husband. Like, we started asking ourselves as parents, like, what kind of books do we want to read our daughter? What kind of stories do we want her to hear about and learn about? And who are the protagonists? And what's going on here? And I feel like, junk food is awesome. I'm not the kind of parent that's like, you can't have a cupcake at a birthday party. Like, I'm like, have a cupcake, it's a party. Like, there's definitely times where you want something really sugary and fluffy and, amazing with sprinkles.
Right.
But you don't want to feed your kid junk food every day. You want to put something nourishing in there. And I feel like I want my daughter to have the art that she's consuming and taking in, and to be of high quality, and to be aesthetically also sort of interesting and challenging, because I feel like it is like food for the brain and food for the soul. And so much of sort of this turning to creating this new sort of artistic venture has been because of a meditation about all the things we've been talking about, and what I want to be a part of, and what I want to make for my daughter, for other kids, for the next generation.
Absolutely. I think that is a wonderful, wonderful sentiment. And as we kind of start to wrap up the podcast here, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a question, because it's actually, this is my brother's question, but I'm
okay.
he's an idiot. And he's like, oh my gosh, ask her if she knows Falkor. And he's joking, of course. You don't know Falkor, but I wanted to ask you, when was the first time that you saw Falkor on set? This huge, amazing, magical thing that I can only imagine what that must have been like for a little kid to see a prop piece, essentially, but something that is also a character and is magical. And is that kind of, how did that influence your imagination and stuff? I just
totally.
Yeah.
I would say that the set really had a huge impact on me, and also the puppets. But Falkor himself was a little bit of different because I met Falkor as just a head missing a body with a green screen behind him. So it was just it wasn't as romantic as your brother wanted it to be. There was a really romantic moment that I'll tell you about. But for me, I was sort of like, oh, that's what that looks like. And then really the magic of Falkor happened for me when I saw the film and I saw what that green screen could do and how the mechanic, it's sort of like I got the backstage of the magician and then I saw the magic trick afterwards. It was sort of reversed. But no, there was a day that it was really my first day on set, and this was one of those sort of romantic moments, and they were filming the Swamps of Sadness scene. And they asked me if I wanted to go look at the set. And I was like, sure. And so we walked down, and there was this huge, big tent in front of me. And I opened the tent, and they had brought, I don't even know. It was like enormous. You couldn't see the end of, once you were inside, you couldn't see the edges of the tent.
Yeah.
It was all mud up to the waist, all trees. And I was completely transported. I was like, I'd never seen anything like it. It was really magical. And, and so the scale of that and the fact that there was no CGI for that, they actually built that swamp. And it was, then you go out of it and it's all housed inside of this tent. It really was one of those, kind of magical moments where you're like, wow, that's, that the sort of whimsy of that, the fact that somebody did that is so crazy and cool.
Yeah. My mind is blown just thinking about how your mind was blown. I'm imagining that moment. That must have been, my gosh, that must have been pretty crazy, opening the flap of the tent and just seeing this massive transport built swamp. It's just, I can't even. How was the oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. That's terrible. I'm a true fan, I swear.
Barrett, Oliver?
The big turtle. No. The big turtle that is from the swamp.
Is it Moreland?
Morla. Yeah.
Morla.
Mhm.
I watched that scene. I watched Morla sneeze Noah Hathaway down into the mud. Yeah.
That's so funny.
poor Noah. I have to say it really was a very magical set, and all of the stuff that we're doing now with Paper Canoe is filled with puppets. Now that I think about it, and those were all puppets operated by human actors, right? It was. So I do think these things, of course, when you're a kid, they imprint upon you, and then they surface in unexpected ways long time later.
Right? and I CGI at the time, and to put another point on technology and how it's changed since this movie first came out. We're not as big of a fan as I was for the longest time. Years and years and years. I had no idea what the name was Sebastian gave you, that he yells out at the window. I'm like, what is he saying? The name? I've been watching this movie. It's all built up to this, and I can't understand it. And it was finally, maybe a decade ago at this point now, but I Googled it. What does it sound like, Princess?
What is it?
I was like, when they said Moonchild, I'm like, oh, of course, it was Moonchild. Thank God for Google. As much as I'm hating technology, me this week. Thank God for Google. That's great. Oh my gosh!
You know, Wolfgang gave Barrett the opportunity to come up with his own name when he was filming that scene, because the Moonchild is what Michael Ende, the author, wrote in the original book. But when Wolfgang was directing the scene, I happened to be there for that scene as well, and he sort of gave Barrett the option of coming up with his own name. And he thought about it for a while, and then he decided that the original name Moonchild, I mean, he just went and did the scene. He didn't discuss it with anyone, but he screamed Moonchild, and so I was like, he went with the classic. He chose the original.
Well, speaking of classics, I am very glad, and I heard that you were too. That at the end they decided to go with the more classic hairstyle for you, rather than I saw some of the other hairdos that they kind of had come up. I was like, oh my gosh. There were some. I mean, the '80s were good, but not everything about the '80s was good. Okay. Oh my God! I have to tell you, I laughed my ass off. I was like, oh my gosh, poor girl.
Yeah, I think they
will live on forever.
They chose wisely.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. So where can people who are listening find and follow you? Where can they find your album? Where can they find Paper Canoe
great!
Stuff?
Yeah, super.
Yeah, let us know where you can find you.
I think the easiest way to follow some of the things that we're doing for families and for kids would be to go to our website, which is www.papercanoecompany.com. And we'll be posting those things. And I think the album's going to be released in a couple of months, but we'll have some tracks that can be downloaded through SoundCloud. And then Twitter is a great way to follow what's happening. It's just Neverending Tami. I'm on Instagram under just my name, Tami Stronach. I have a blog that I started writing for some of the things that we were talking about. You can go to Tumblr with T Stronach. So I'm out there. I've come out of the woodworks.
Well, we're so glad.
And then my dance company for any modern dance fans out there. I have my Tami Stronach Dance is my website for the dance work.
Awesome. And I watched a couple of the videos, and I think I'm on YouTube maybe, and fantastic. I absolutely enjoyed watching your performances. Really great. Really, really great.
Oh, thank you so much.
But absolutely, and thank you so much for doing the podcast, for being on. Thank you so much for your pursuit of helping others pursue their dreams and your constant encouragement of others to really do what they love. I think it's really an important message, and I'm so glad that you're on the same team.
Totally, and thank you. I had so much fun talking to you. It was really a pleasure, and thanks for reaching out to me, and it was awesome, and thank you for your work. So yeah, we'll keep encouraging to everyone to do what they dream, and we'll keep trying to do it too.
Absolutely. If you mind signing off the podcast, it's super easy.
Say that again?
Would you mind signing off the podcast? It's really easy. Basically, all you would say is, this has been Tami Stronach with Curve the Cube.
Oh, I see. So you just want me to say, this is Tami, so say the sentence one more time?
This has been Tami Stronach with Curve the Cube. However you want to say it. It's very loose.
Super. I'll do it right now. This is Tami Stronach with Curve the Cube.
Yay! Virtual high five.
I love that title, by the way. It's super cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Wait, you know what? I totally did that wrong. I said curb the cube instead of curve the cube. No. I have to do it again.
I didn't
realize that. Let me do it one more time because it's such a great title. I totally butchered it. Here we go. This is Tami Stronach with Curve the Cube.
Yay!
That was better. That
You're
was
the
faux pas.
best. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I, you know what? I adore you. I didn't think I could adore you even more than I adored the imaginary you on my screen, but I do. I think you're fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
I really
much.
did have so much fun. And say hi to your son and say hi to your brother.
Oh, I will. And say hi to your girl and your husband for me.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Care.
Have a great one.
Yeah.
Bye.
You have successfully curved the cube.
Well, curvists, I hope you have enjoyed that, which was the 100th episode of the Curve the Cube podcast. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I've gotten this far, and I'm so excited to see where the road leads, and I thank you all for coming along this journey with me. Please be inspired, I hope, by these podcasts to pursue your own dreams and get yourself out of a rut. And do what you love, man. Do what you love. Or as the folks from Fantasia would say, do what you dream, right? And if you don't know that movie, Neverending Story, please go check it out. And if your kids have never seen it, shame on you. Go sit them down on the couch and make them watch it. Peel their eyelids open, make sure they see it. It's such a good movie. Anyways, this episode of Curve the Cube is sponsored by Little Smiles of Florida. I mean, what more fitting on a podcast where I'm interviewing someone who played a role in a pivotal movie about, the pursuit of happiness, than to have this organization who does that for kids in our community sponsoring this episode. So that's what they do. They try to put smiles and happiness on the face of little kids who are going through hardships, most oftentimes medical related, and then sometimes other hardships like loss of everything to a fire, or all kinds of different things. And Little Smiles, whenever there's a gap, they step in and help do their best to fill those needs. And they're such a wonderful organization. So please show them all the support you can. And all the money stays here in South Florida when you donate to the Florida chapter. So please go to littlesmiles.org and donate. Just do a straight donation, or you can go to one of their fantastic events. Seriously, they have like the best events ever. So go check out one of those, or whatever you can. And as the holidays approach, they'll be doing some toy drives. So, bring an unwrapped toy to something cool that they're throwing and doing, and you'll enjoy yourself at the same time. Win-win. And thank you to DJ John Hitta for the music bed. And please follow Curve the Cube on everywhere. And oh, big announcement, guys. I just got this email today that the Curve the Cube podcast has been admitted to, drumroll please. Okay, so that's really just a finger tap on my table, but whatever. iHeartRadio! And the crowd goes wild! Wow. All right, so that was me attempting to be influenced by the current World Series and failing miserably. But anyways, it's exciting! I'm on iHeartRadio, this podcast is, and it's so exciting. So seriously, this is seminal. 100 episodes in, I have someone as a guest who was just, my gosh, the amount of hours I spent watching this movie as a kid. And also today to hear that iHeartRadio has accepted the podcast. So thank you to all of you for all of your constant support. And I will now shut up, and hopefully you'll go on and listen to yet another episode of the podcast. Love you.